thank everybody for coming and helping me out today. I really appreciate it. Today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about central auditory processing disorder. Many of you know that I have two boys, age 15 and 9. My 15-year-old is a typical teenager, smart mouth, kind of lazy, but overall a good kid. My youngest is 9, and he is sweet as can be and smart as a whip. But what many of you may not know is that he has central auditory processing disorder. We found when he was small he had a limited vocabulary when he was about 3 or 4 years old, and that we did into some testing, and then as years went by we finally were able to get a diagnosis when he was 7 of the disorder. So what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is what central auditory processing disorder is, how it's diagnosed, and some of the accommodations and strategies that they offer for the kids today. According to Terry James Bellis, who's an audiologist, APD is an auditory deficit that is not a result of the other higher order cognitive, language, or related disorders. Basically, it means that CAPD children, or auditory processing children, have a hard time differentiating between sounds. They become distorted and they may hear something different than what you say. So if you say, I like that blue boat, they may think you said, I like that blue coat. It just takes them a little bit longer to process because they'll grip onto something and then they'll answer it wrong. Like if he says, you ask him, what is up in the sky and is orange? You be me thinking the sun? He'll say a plane because his brain wrecked into the first part of the sentence and it's processing it slower and going ahead, and he missed the other half. So this disorder affects, the ballpark number is about 5% of all school-age children of today. They don't know what the main cause of it is. They've said possible lead poisoning, head trauma. They're not sure if it's genetic. They haven't been able to discover that. But they have devised tests that can go ahead and test to see whether or not they have this. In order to test for it, the first thing that they do is a hearing test that automatically rules out the hearing impairment because it can mimic a hearing impairment. And then they have speech and language pathologists meet with them and do some testing to ensure that it's not a reading disability or anything along those lines, cognitive or anything like that. And then then they'll meet with an audiologist, and then we'll run through there's a specific order of tests that they will run to determine whether or not these children wind up with auditory processing disorder. There are 5 main problem areas for auditory processing disorder. There's the auditory figure ground problems. That means that the background noises that you and I can necessarily tune out, like the ticking of the clock, or maybe a conversation that's being had down in the hallway. His brain is unable to filter out that noise. He is constantly trying to process that noise at the same time as he's trying to listen to you and process what you're saying. There's also the auditory memory problems that because of these noises, he can't retain. He has trouble taking things from his short-term memory, banking that back into his long-term memory so that he can retrieve them later. So if you were to give him multi-step instructions, then he would potentially be able to do the first one, maybe the second one, but he would struggle to remember the third and the fourth and so on. They would need to be repeated to him. There's auditory discrimination problems, and that's where I talked about he may hear similar words, coat, boat, couch, pouch. It's all discriminative, and the louder the noises in the background, the harder it is for him to distinguish. In many ways, it does mimic almost like a hearing loss, but it's not. There's the auditory attention problems that he struggles in school, so he can't focus. The teacher will be giving a lesson, and if he loses a piece of it, he's trying to find it back. It will turn around, and he won't be able to focus in on the rest of the lesson because he will have lost his place completely. And then it becomes overwhelming. And that's where the auditory cohesion problem comes into play. That it's just like meltdown. It's so overwhelming to them if they lose their place. It's so hard for them to get back that they need to stop, take a step back, and people have to sometimes reteach it to him or re-explain it to him in a different way. So the combinations and strategies that can be given to these children to help them out is preferential seating in a classroom or in an office area where there's a reduced amount of noise. If there's an auditory source, putting them next to the auditory source so that the primary thing that they hear. Then you can, when speaking to them, it's very important, you know, when we're doing a classroom instruction, we're facing the board when we're writing. It's very important for people to be close to him, speaking to him, versus with his back, because it becomes muffled. We don't think it's muffled, but for them it becomes very muffled. And then sometimes having the instructions in a written form and repeating them to them 2, 3, 4, sometimes 6 different ways. It's just that one word difference that may make a huge thing for him in understanding how to understand what you're saying. So they, let's see, many children with CAPD will not self-advocate, so it's body cues, it's when you see the mouth staring into the space, you know, it's kind of those things, those little strategies to say, hey, you know, bring them back in, kind of focus them back in. Those are the important things. So to go over a little bit about CAPD, just to summarize what we did, we talked a little bit about what auditory processing disorder is, how it's diagnosed, and finally, some of the things that we can do to help out these little kids. You know, Jason is a normal little boy. He has CAPD, he is not CAPD. There's nothing wrong with him outwardly to see him. You would think there's nothing wrong, and we treat him that there's nothing wrong, because it's just a different way. It's just, he learns things differently, he's not different. So I want to thank you guys for today for coming and listening to my speech, and if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much.